Alright, so I enjoy cooking a brisket on a regular kettle grill, so I thought I'd show you how I do it. This is real easy. This is the most basic full-sized Weber kettle grill, and if you're just cooking a brisket point, like I usually do, actually it works really well. So let's get let that get going. In the grill itself, what I do is I move the grill 180 degrees so that if any fat I do put a drip pan in, but if any fat got down on one side, it's mostly burned off the next time I cook, and then I'll switch it back and vice versa. Okay. So now let's do the charcoal ring. So I use the snake method. Circular shape of the grill obviously lends itself very well to this, in which the fire is just going to spread by itself in a circle. It would look more like a snake if I were using briquettes, but I don't like to use briquettes. And this generally works quite well. Um, Now let's get some smoking wood chunks. So I always use pecan wood. Um, I find it just gives me a nice kind of mild flavor that isn't too objectionable to anybody. Now, we'll just let this, so this is basically designed so that I'll have nice smoke here for the first part of the cooking. I'm only going to actually apply the smoke to the brisket for the first uh, 2 hours tops, because today I'm actually experimenting with a light coat of smoke. So this is designed to be timed for that, and then it'll just keep cooking. And I can always keep adding, of course, more charcoal here if I want. So first thing I do is I save the trimmings, some of them, because I'm going to, when I wrap it later in butcher paper, I'm going to wrap it after coating it with beef fat. So where do you get beef fat? Well, your trimmings. And all I do is I put them in this little thing, put them on the grill, and let it just render. And the beautiful thing about that is that, of course, the fat also gets a hint of smoke flavor, and it's really nice. And then, so this is the brisket itself. So the reason it's wrapped like this is because what I do is I season it 48 hours beforehand, um, and let it essentially dry brine all that time. I find that the seasoning penetrates the meat really, really nicely when you do that. Um, so this here, you might say, well, what's on it? What's seasoning it? And the answer is that this is a mixture of pepper, Lowry seasoned salt, and a small amount of MSG. Um, I really, the MSG definitely adds a little bit to it. And I think the Lowry seasoned salt adds a little depth of flavor beyond regular salt without sort of overpowering it, without being a distinctive flavor. So basically, that's going to go over one of these in the grill because, of course, a lot of fat's going to drip down. All right, let's get these things on the grill. We've got to set up our temperature probes. So as you can see, the coals are starting up real nice. Move that over there. Let's get your pan. So basically, I want the brisket as far from the fire as I can pretty much get it. So, pan right there. So I want the probe, basically, I want it as far as I can get it from the meat itself without touching something else that's hot. So let's see, I just got to figure out how I want to do this. So you want the probe as far as you can get it from the fire, but in a good position where it will be able to judge the temperature. That's pretty good right there. That's not, I don't like it though. Let's move it a little bit this way. I'm going to move this a little bit this way. That ought to be good. And so that'll just broadcast to my little wireless thing that tells me the stove temperature. And I'm going to set the temperature to 225 because this is a small brisket. I don't want it to overcook too quickly. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to all I do is I close the grates on the bottom halfway because that fire was going so good that it's obviously going to bring the temp up real fast. And you can probably see there's a lot of nice smoke coming out of that. Okay. So it's already at where the temperature probe is, at least it's 243 in there, and now it's at 275. So what we're going to do is we're just going to keep the airflow low, let it stabilize at somewhere between 225 and 250, and then put the meat on. Okay, so we've got the grill at the right temp. Oops. Let's try not to do that again. So you put the thickest end facing the fire. I'm really just trying to leave enough space for my... That ought to work. That ought to work. That'll go just right about there. And we're good. That flares up again, of course, when you open the lid, but it'll die back down now. Oh, actually, I'll give it a quick spritz. So this is just a liquid that helps the smoke stick to the meat. Helps you get a nice bark. And this is a 50-50 mix of water and apple cider vinegar. Okay, so it's been about an hour, I guess. So just time for a little spritz. Let's see if I can get this away so I can get that corner there. So you can see that a decent bark is developing there. The fire is moving around, and so what I'm going to do now is I basically just rotate the whole grate so that the meat isn't too close. So we're on 2 hours now. And you can see we've got some beautiful color happening here. We've also got some very nice color on the beef tallow. So what I'm going to do next, actually, is it's almost time for me. I want to make sure I get some smoke flavor on the macaroni and cheese that I'm going to put on here. So what I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to put a tray of macaroni and cheese basically right here, and let it get 1 or 2 hours of smoke flavor. This already has a nice bit going on, so I'm not sure if I'll leave this on or not, but I'll decide in a few minutes. I'm going to see what fits. Well, here we're 3 hours into it, so let's have a look. Oh, looking nice. So I don't know if you can see, but the macaroni and cheese is getting just a little bit of color on top from the smoke. And of course, this thing's just looking gorgeous. I'll quick spray that. Totally gorgeous. Totally gorgeous. Can I touch that? I better get a thing. I just don't want the spray to go into my macaroni and cheese. This macaroni and cheese is going to be, I think, fantastic. It's got cheddar, some blue cheese in it, smoked paprika, garlic, and then with the smoke flavor that'll permeate it, it'll be pretty darn good. And then at the very end, I'll actually put big chunks of buttered bread on top and crisp it up, probably under the broiler in the oven. It'll be out of sight. It's going to be delicious. You know what I think I'll do is I think I'll come back with a thermometer and take the temperature of that meat. Okay, let's see what we're at here. 124, 128, perfect. So basically I'd like to get it to at least 140. People will take it past that, but one of my goals today was a very light smoke flavor on this. So I'll probably wrap it before it gets to a higher temperature. Okay, so here we are, 3.5 hours in, I guess. Yeah, that's just looking gorgeous. Gosh, look at the bark on that. It's really looking nice. Um, I got to figure out. We've got some really nice color also, of course, on the macaroni and cheese. I think I could definitely let both of these go just a little bit longer. As you know, today I'm trying to go for a light smoke taste on the brisket. So we'll see, But it's definitely not there yet. But I don't want to overdo it. Anyway, this is looking just brilliant. So we'll cover it back up, let it go another 30 minutes or so. You know what I think I'll do? I think I'll check the temperature of the meat one more time. 142. That's pretty good. So that basically, 30 minutes from now, I'll be able to wrap, and it'll be perfect. Perfect. Okay. So here we are at 3.5 hours. So what I'm going to do first is remove the macaroni and cheese, which is basically perfect for the next step, where I'll add the buttered breadcrumbs on top and run them under the broiler. I actually won't do that until dinner time, which isn't for hours and hours and hours. But it'll hold perfectly just like this. So I'll just wrap it in foil. So you can see that the brisket is basically just perfect right here. It's rendered a lot of fat into the pan beneath it. It'll continue to render fat, of course, but at this point, what you're really trying to achieve is to liquefy the collagen in the brisket so that it gets completely tender. If I put the temperature probe in right now, you'd see, so the temperature is 151. So it's a great wrapping temperature, and I'll do that in the kitchen and just show you the couple simple steps you need to do. So here's the part where it disappears from view for a bunch of hours, quite a long time, until basically we eat it. So the first step is to saturate the wrapping paper with this, the rendered fat. And the simplest way to do that is just to pour it out and then spread it. So, by the way, while I'm doing this, I should just say, so, different people who do brisket do it different ways. Some people do it without wrapping. Some people wrap it in foil, which is by far the most common way. There's some pretty good research that shows that the untreated butcher paper provides a more breathable environment. And this is important, in my opinion, because meat that is merely steamed has a sort of a stewed taste. And that's not really, in my opinion, that really doesn't go well with a barbecue taste. So I I like to have some amount of breathability in what I'm wrapping this in so that it doesn't trap all of the steam. So here is this absolute thing of beauty. And so what I'm going to do next, I'm just going to actually just make sure that there's plenty of this over around it. This I don't need to be too preoccupied with the amount. In other words, I don't have to overdo it because this is a prime brisket, and so it's really actually already quite. It's going to feel very juicy in the mouth because, of course, almost all of the moisture sensation you get from meat isn't actually from true moisture from water. It's actually from rendered fat. All right, so let's roll this thing up. And now that is going to go onto the grill because I still have plenty of coals. And I'm going to cook it basically until I reach an internal temperature of about between 200 and 205. But the key is, can I tell from the feeling of the temperature probe, is the collagen rendered into liquid? That's the key. That's when it becomes, very jiggly and soft and tender. So let's head out to the grill. Okay, so we're ready to just keep going here on the grill. So since there's nothing on the grill except the temperature probe, I'm actually going to take this off. And I'm just going to take a few minutes to essentially get all of the charcoal that maybe didn't burn, get it back. I'll move this over, and then this stuff will just be stuff that gets burned later. I'll just move it from the beginning of the cycle to the end. All right. Now let's get that brisket on. I'll still point the fat end at the thing, and now let's close it up. So this is going to cook for at least, well, I'm sure it'll take at least 3 to 4 more hours to get up to temperature, possibly more. And then at that point is sort of in my opinion, the most crucial part of the cook, which is the resting period. And I'll show you that when I do it. All right, we should be there. So the important thing is, when you're taking the temperature, get through the paper so you're not confusing the resistance of the paper with the resistance of the meat. And then feel the meat. I'm looking at the temperature, it's 204, which is right. But what I'm really doing now, I'm going to shift direction of the meat. It should feel, essentially like peanut butter. And it does. And So it's definitely ready to come off and go to the next step. So let's do that. Okay, so at this point, what we'll do is we'll get it into this cooler for the holding stage. So I can tell just from picking this up that it's in a good place. The meat, it feels very loose, very kind of jiggly. Like it should really, honestly, it should sort of feel like Jello. So the next step is to simply put it in the right sized cooler. You want a cooler that is about the right size for the brisket. And this is just a point, so it can fit in this relatively small cooler. And so honestly, I think it's a pretty defining step for really good brisket. There are some places, that hold their brisket in special holding ovens at about 140 degrees for 12, 20 hours before they serve it. Even a steak, when you take it off the heat, you've got to let it sit for 5 to 10 minutes so that the temperature can redistribute itself. I think in the case of brisket, what's actually happening is that there's some pieces of collagen that are thicker than others. And, right now this thing's at 200 degrees. So when I put it in this cooler and I close the lid, it's going to basically just very, very slowly decrease in temperature. And I think what happens is that any collagen that hasn't yet liquefied is going to do that. But there's a huge difference between a brisket that doesn't sit and a brisket that does. That's actually why I feel kind of sorry for people who do competition briskets, because then you're operating under time constraints. You've got to get it to the judges, and that's just you just can't let it sit like you might want to. So I'm gonna close this up, and I will let it sit. For me, basically 2 hours is my minimum. And so it's going to be perfect for dinner time. And by the time I cut into it, my goal is for it to be at a serving temperature of about 140 degrees. In this case, given that I'm putting it in here at 200, in 2 hours it may actually be higher than 140, but it's okay either way. It's going to be delicious. If I can let it go 4 hours, I'm totally happy to do that. So it's just going to sit here until dinner time. And my next step is all I really need to do is to do the macaroni and cheese, and I'm good. This really doesn't have anything left to do except just sit here and chill and get all nice and soft and unctuous. So this is the best part of the brisket. And by the way, the smell coming out of this cooler is absolutely fantastic. Anyway, so we'll come back to you when we're ready to cut into this beauty. So our next step is to just quick finish up the macaroni and cheese here. So this has been smoked, and then I've been heating it since, obviously, I finished smoking it hours ago. I was just heating it now in the oven. And then my next step is to put the topping on. So the topping is really just for people who like a little crunch on top of their mac and cheese, but they think breadcrumbs are too wimpy. Comes this way of doing it, actually from Martha Stewart, in which I'm basically torn up bread into about half-inch size chunks, and then right now I'm tossing it in a couple of tablespoons of butter. And you probably can't see, but the bread is moistened a little bit. And then basically all I'm going to do now is top this, and I'm going to turn on the broiler in the oven, but I'll keep this quite a distance from the broiler actually, because I want it to just sort of gently brown just on top. The bottom is already warm, so it doesn't really need anything. This will absolutely be fantastic. This will be just gorgeous. It'll be all crunchy on top. Perfect. Let's get it in the oven. Okay, well, let's get this little beauty out of here. So of course the paper is completely saturated with water and fat. So what I'll do is I'll pull it out of here. I'll drain it in the sink, and then I'll put it on a cutting board. So I don't know how this shows up on camera, but this is truly a pretty gorgeous brisket. So I'm curious. Let's just see what the temperature is in the center here. Oh wow, couldn't be better. 145. That's just fantastic. So it's basically at essentially a perfect serving temperature. So let's cut into this and have a look at it. So if we just kind of go through here and have a look at the inside of this little beauty, I don't know if you can see that, but that's pretty juicy. I'm going to, I guess what I'll do, the grain runs this way, so I'm going to actually cut another slice. Oh wow, that's just perfect, just phenomenal. This is going to be great burnt ends, just great. So let's cut this little beauty up. It cuts very there's like no effort at all to cut it. It's amazing. I just go slow. I mean, look at this end. I don't know to what extent that shows up, but that's just soft and tender. It's going to be pretty phenomenal. So I'm going to take the ends for myself, cut those up, and plate those up, and we'll see what it looks like when we're done.